easy flow yoga. I often at the end of classes talk about the word namaste and being thankful for things in the universe. It's, you know, it snowed here yesterday. It snowed here yesterday morning, last night. There's snow on the ground this morning. It's nature's April Fool's joke. However, there are giant gangs of big fat robins singing and talking and looking for worms. So I'm taking that as a positive sign that spring is indeed around. So we're going to start in an easy pose for a few moments just to get our breath going. And then we're going to move into a butterfly pose. So today's yin class, it's mostly a yin class. I'll explain that. It's going to be focused on our hips and kind of the front of our hips, the hip flexors, our glutes, our lower back, and our core, a little bit into our thighs, and thighs and hamstrings and quads in the top, just to get a little bit of movement in our hips. That's going to be the goal. So we're breathing in and out through our nose. And trying to drag our breath into our belly. And our attention is focusing, we're focusing our attention on the air coming in, our belly expanding, and then our belly relaxing, and the air coming back up. All right, let's do a couple more breaths. Let's try and get 3 in a row that we're able to focus our attention. All right, so let's come into butterfly pose. And butterfly pose is when we're taking our feet, putting the soles of our feet together and leaning forward. So this is an exercise, a movement that really works the insides of our thighs. So what we're going to do is take the ideas of yin yoga, which is essentially holding a pose. And since our more science-based research suggests that holding stretches doesn't necessarily work as well as an active movement, we're going to build in the active movement into the yoga. So we'll inhale, come up a little bit with our hip, our torso, and then on the exhale, we're just going to fall forward. And then inhale, come up, and we're going to keep doing this for a little while. So there will be some moments in yin yoga where you get a little uncomfortable because, like, this isn't hard, but at a certain point, your inner thighs or something, maybe your knees, will just start to ache. And I don't say that to put the suggestion in your head. It just happens. And those are the moments that you work on your breathing. And those are the moments that you work on focusing your attention on your breath. Maybe even focusing the breath into the places that are a little bit achy. But we're just going to keep moving. Now, one of the things that I hope that you feel when you're doing this is that when you're inhaling and rolling your torso back a little bit, your knees will start to naturally fall open, and that's part of the process. We're not trying to force anything. You never try to force anything in any yin pose or any yoga pose for that matter. You're just trying to get to that point where your body says, oh, no, right there. And then relax that, and then you can go a little bit farther next time. So when you see my hands on my feet, I'm not really pulling. I'm just kind of supporting my torso. You know, sometimes we do it where we're reaching forward, but we're not going to even be that aggressive today. And this is when I should have like a witty banter and jokes, because this goes kind of slowly. So hopefully you've got some music or something that you're listening to. You know, your eyeballs are the last part of you to die when you die. I don't know if you know that, but they dilate. Late, yeah. Okay, I'll stop. All right, a couple more of these. I do love that dad jokes are getting back in style, because I've been telling, I've always called them seventh grader jokes, because that's what I always told my seventh graders when I was teaching them. These are just really dumb jokes. And they're all in style. I think they're funny. Like, what does the fish say when he hits the wall? Damn. All right, let's do one more. So what's kind of cool is that you do start to open up a lot. Now, we're going to do a counter pose to that, and we've done these before as well. We're going to come back onto our backs and lie with our knees, our feet as wide apart on the mat as we can. And so how we were just working the inside of our thighs, we're going to do those windshield wipers where we are dropping our knees to the left, but really our right knee is coming down towards our left foot. And we're keeping our shoulders on the ground. My right butt cheek is off the mat though. And then I'm going to roll my knees up on the inhale. And on the exhale, I'm trying to drop my left knee down to my right foot. And this is not really a yin pose. This is more of a counter pose to the butterfly that we just did. The goal of a counter pose is that we just kind of get some of the stretchy parts that we just stretched, just to come back into a position so that we're moving better than we did before. A little more blood flow, a little more good, solid movement. All right, let's come back. Left knee down. And let's roll back up to a seated position. And what we'll do is we'll come into a straddle pose. And this is one that's not very comfortable for me, because I really am not very flexible in my hamstrings. Excuse me. And so the straddle, and we'll do a couple of variations. We're going to do a straddle. We're going to do a seated forward fold where our feet will be together. Then we're going to do half cow poses, and we'll work a little bit more into the hip. So our goal here is to bring the middle of our chest towards our left knee. So we're going to come down on the exhale, then inhale up a little bit, and exhale, try to sink down. So the goal is to keep my right leg on the mat. I can feel my right butt cheek coming off the mat just a little bit, and that's okay. We're just trying to create a little bit of stretchies. It's going to be in my right hip a little bit. It's going to be my left hamstring, even into my left glute. And again, we are just going to be gently moving with this. You don't need to move a lot on the inhale and the exhale, but when you move, it reminds you to do the breathing. And the breathing helps you move. So it's a kind of a symbiotic. So the idea of what the word yin means, it's the yin yang. And if you've seen that circle with the two kind of commas, that's the yin yang symbol. And the idea is the loud and the quiet, the gentle and the rough, not even rough, but it's kind of the yang movement is our typical yoga class where it's very active. And in yin yoga, it's more passive in the turn of we are spending more time simply sitting here. So there are moments where we are trying to be more focused on our breathing and our attention. Let's roll over to the other side. Now again, I'm going to bring the middle of my chest to my right knee and get a sip of coffee. And sometimes it's helpful to bring my left hand over. It kind of helps me rotate my shoulders a little bit so that I'm able to get my middle of my chest more down towards my knee. And it all depends on how you are moving this morning, how you generally move. Straddles and forward folds are typically a challenge. But I'm just focusing on my breathing. I'm going to inhale into my belly. When I'm done inhaling, I'm going to start relaxing my belly and just rolling forward. Good. Let's keep going. A few more. I find that doing one of these kind of sessions every once in a while is kind of restoring. It's not quite restorative yoga, but it's just totally different. And when we're done, you're going to get this kind of I want to say a soft feeling or a quiet feeling, but that you've done some exercise in a way, but that you're just moving differently. And you'll feel a little sense of difference in how your hips move. It's kind of cool. It's very subtle. Okay, let's bring our knees together. And this is one that sometimes you might put your hands underneath your thighs. It depends on how the backs of your knees feel. Sometimes putting a block underneath them. It's just, this is not always very comfortable. So the idea here is that we are doing our toe touches like we have done all of our lives. So the inhale is to reach forward the toes and just kind of pay attention to how far you reach the first time. So I'm getting not even to my ankle bone. And I'm going to inhale and come back. And eventually, as we keep moving and keep opening, letting the muscles relax, you'll find yourself continuing to open, and it's kind of cool onto my ankle bones. And just focus on your breathing. Let your breathing be your guide. It's as if we're doing a 45-minute breathing practice, but we do a little bit of movement in the process. So my toes are starting to fall out. That sounds funny. They're starting to roll out. They're not falling out. That would be really bad. We'd have to change yoga classes. But that's okay. That's just different parts of your hamstrings that are starting to open up. And you can always kind of, like I just put my hands around my shins and my calves to keep them more in place. But again, so pay attention to where you're feeling things. Maybe you're feeling things in your lower back. Maybe you're feeling them in your hamstrings. Maybe they're in your glutes. Maybe they're in your upper back. Good, nice. Just keep rolling. Yep. Do a couple more breaths. All right, let's roll up. Now, on Paul's list of poses that he doesn't like because they're really a challenge is cow pose. And that's when you sit with both knees like this one around, and both knees are on top of each other. This is a really hard challenge. So I don't like them because they're more challenging. So we're going to do half cows because they're really good for starting to open up your hips. So my left leg is straight on the mat. My right knee is sort of on top of my left knee, and my right foot is over by my left heel, basically as I can. And what we're going to do is just like the forward fold, we're going to try to roll forward. And you're going to feel this in different places. I immediately feel it more in my left hamstring, but I'm going to try to get more into my right hip. That's going to be the goal. So from here, we're starting from like kind of the back parts of our hips. And then we're going to come into a low lunge and work other parts of our hips. The front, the hip flexors. We're just continuing to move. Just falling forward. Paying attention to your breathing first and then moving second. The other part about yin yoga is being able to drink coffee. I don't think that's in the handbook though, for some reason. Yeah, this is kind of doing these half ones are interesting because it's in my hips, but it's definitely in my left hamstring. The other thing about yin yoga classes is that there's not a lot of the traditional flow. I don't do a lot of that to begin with. We did that on Wednesday, a bit more flow. You know, kind of moving from pose to pose. This is more doing a pose for extended time and then moving into another one. And now we're going to be moving into a low lunge, or in yin yoga, for whatever reason, has decided to call some of these poses differently. So low lunges are, you know, if you have both hands on the mat, they're lizard poses in regular yoga, but in yin yoga, they're called dragons. I think I like that better. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up, and our right foot is going to be forward in our low lunge, and our left knee is going to be down. Yeah, and you'll be able to feel this right away. It's like, whoa, your left hip feels like, that feels really, really tight. At least that's how it's feeling right now. Holy Toledo. All right, so we've done these a lot. The goal is to inhale your hips back and exhale your hips forward. So your right knee is coming forward and it's roughly over your right ankle. And it doesn't matter a whole lot where your front foot is, excuse me. You're just trying to be comfortable and balanced. You can have your hand on your knee. If you can come into a lizard or a dragon pose and put your palms or your hands on the mat, you can do that. That's a little bit much for me this morning. So I'm just going to keep my hands on my knee and just keep rolling forward. So your primary thing that you should be feeling are your hip flexors, the muscles in the front of your left hip. So basically from your left, the front of your left hip bone down into your quadriceps. They form the tops of your quadriceps. And those are the muscles that get short when we sit a lot. And in my case, when I'm riding my bike a lot, they're constantly shortening. And so doing this pose is a great, great way of rebuilding, wrong word, remobilizing, creating additional mobility in my hips. Ooh, and then you're just going to keep finding yourself moving forward. We'll do this for another 10, 15 seconds. It's a little bit tough on your left knee, so if that happens, you can fold your mat over in half or rest it on a blanket. All right, now we're going to come into winged dragon, which I do like as a title. And we've done this in class a couple times. Let's get our hands on the mat if you can, or on your knuckles. And then we're going to come to the right part of our foot and let our right knee fall open as much as you can. And so the inhale is bringing your hips back and your right knee up a little bit. And your exhale is bringing your hips forward and letting your right knee drop open. So you will feel, I mean, this is all hips right now. This is all hip opening. This is amazing. You can just feel everything open. Please just take it easy though on your hip flexors and your knee. Don't push anything. The inhale is just to relax things. And then the exhale is just to come forward to that point where you naturally stop. And if you went any farther, it would start to hurt. And you definitely don't want pain. And if your hip starts to rotate a little bit, that's fine. A little bit longer on this side with the wing. Just to try to let your body move. Every once in a while, your body just, the muscles that you're targeting with the relaxation just open up. And my right hip, the wing just, my knee just dropped. It's like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Okay, just a couple more breaths. Good. All right, now we're going to come back. This time we're going to leave your right leg out. We're going to come back into that cow face pose. Your right leg is out and your left knee is over your right knee. And this is where the challenge comes in this pose is that I don't come anywhere near that. And maybe by the end of this little session here of our half cow, it will. But we're going to do the work on the same thing. We're just going to try to come forward as best you can, bringing the knee, well, bringing more of your chest into the knee. And again, find your breath into your belly first, and then fall forward. If you want to try a full cow-faced pose, please, by all means, do so. It's just bringing your left, oh geez. So you're like this, but knees on top of each other. That's the direction you're going. It's a little pretzel-y for me though. Just exhale. The idea of the exhale is not to actually force an exhale out, but to let it simply, your belly relax and just let the air come out. So you inhale to fill your lower belly, and then you relax and pay attention to the air leaving you. And then when you need air, you inhale, come up, exhale, start to fall forward. Yeah, this is a little bit different today. I'm getting a little bit more open, but it's really in my right glute I'm feeling this today. Just pay attention to where it's feeling, where you're getting it today. Let's do one more breath here. All right, now we'll come up into our lunge again. This time our left foot is forward and our right knee is back. And again, if you can, or if you want to, you can have both hands on the ground or on a block. I'm going to stay more upright in my lunge simply for balance points. Often when I do this just as a separate movement, I'll have a chair that I hold on to or a bench of some kind. A really good way of doing this, once you feel like you've got some good balance, is to have your arms up overhead, like a warrior one, and you're looking up. That tends to be obviously less of a yin pose because you're much more active. And it requires a lot of core and hip stability, which makes it a really good movement. But that's not our goal today. Just gonna keep rolling forward with our hips and our breathing. And then in a couple of breaths, we'll come down into our winged dragon. so slowly extend your foot a little bit, but we're going to roll onto the side of our left foot. Bring your palms down if you can, or on a block or on your knuckles. And so I am letting my left knee fall out. This is becoming one of my more favorite poses because there's just so much that's going on here. You can really just feel it in your hips, in your front of your hips, in your glutes. So inhale, bring your hips back, maybe even bring your knee up a little bit. And exhale, and just let your knee fall forward. And your hips come forward. Good. Do a few more breaths of this. It would be good for me to have a timer when I do these kind of sessions. I try to count breaths, but obviously my breaths are different than yours. And then I start talking and then I forget my breath count. And then so I have no idea what I'm doing in terms of time. Two more breaths here. Excellent. All right, now we're going to come back down to the mat and we're going to come into what we all used to call hurdler stretches, and that's what actually Yin calls them. And we'll take our left leg and put it to our side with our knee forward. And again, this is a really challenging pose for me because I can't get there. The goal here is to be working on your left hip flexor. So you can see my right leg is almost to the side. Ideally, both butt cheeks are on the mat. This leg is rolled up, but you want to try to have it so that your left knee is bent in some way, and that when we do this, it's going to be a little bit different than what we're used to. We're going to be rolling out and back so that we're pulling a little bit at this hip flexor on the left. All right, so however you can get into this pose. My toes are pointing out away from my body, my left side. And so again, the goal is to be leaning back, and you have to kind of go by feel a little bit because you're trying to get at these muscles, the ones that, if you feel the front of your hip bone here, the ones that go down. And so you're coming back and down on the exhale. It's almost like you're if we were ballerinas, we would be going. Yeah, but that would require grace and all that. That doesn't work. Just let things fall open. And if you start to open up a little bit, you can start to adjust how you're sitting, but the movement is still the same with your inhale and exhale. Where we're just, that was a little too tight. I can feel that. We're just trying to open up our front of our hips. You know, we do a lot of forward folds and standing forward folds and seated forward folds to work our hamstrings. We don't do quite as much with our quads, and they are probably more restricted in some ways than our hamstrings. And they are definitely tight quads and tight hip flexors are definitely more responsible for lower back pain than your hamstrings. And all the hamstrings will make you feel good when you're stretching them. They don't often help. We'll do a few more of these. We're running a little close on time here. Just feel how rocks these are and how tight they are. And we're just trying to just bring you're sort of stretching the muscle in terms of you're lengthening it, but the goal is just trying to, it's like you were kneading bread in a way where we're just trying to make it more pliable and more moving so that more blood flows through it. That's the key. All right, that's enough. That's starting to get really uncomfortable. Okay, now comes the fun part, trying to get it back into straight. Oh, all right, bring your leg back. Let's get your right leg back now. And you'll notice a difference between the two. Depends on how you walk, depends on how your hip feels. Okay, here we go. Same thing. So now my right knee is pointing out, my right toes are pointing out. I'm not able to get both butt cheeks on the mat, but that's okay. It really doesn't matter. Again, I'm trying to create some pulling on my right hip flexor. So we'll inhale, exhale, and roll back. And roll back. Excuse me. And that's all we're trying to do is just lengthen that hip flexors. And I'm just inhaling into my belly, coming up with my torso, and on the exhale, I'm just leaning back and letting the air trying to come out, trying to let the air just come out. Just rotating and feeling the lengthening here. Oops. Knocking off the microphone. All right, let's do a couple more breaths. All right, now let's bring our leg forward. We're going to roll back onto our backs, and we're going to do some reclining twists. We'll do those book openings. So roll over onto your right side, and then your knees are up at a 90-degree angle from your torso. Right hand goes onto your left knee. This will be the final movement we do. I think, yeah, that's about it. Maybe we'll get into a child's pose at the end. But what we're going to do here is really focus on our lower back. And so you want to try to have your torso not rolled forward, but as straight, almost arched as possible with your knees pretty high. So we're going to reach with our left hand and inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to, my right shoulder's on the mat, and I'm trying to bring my left shoulder down to the mat along with my left hand. My knees stay on the mat. My hand stays on my knees to kind of keep them there. The inhale is up. The exhale is just letting this arm fall. And I adjust my legs. You should feel just a a gentle twist in your lower back. Just letting it just fall open. And we'll do a minute or so of these. You are just letting the weight of your arm bring your shoulder down to the mat. So we're not really trying to do anything movement-wise with bringing our arms down. The only movement is really, the intentional movement is inhaling into your belly and lifting your arm up, and then the exhale is letting it fall. Let's do 2 more breaths. All right, let's roll over. I'm going to flip around. You can just roll over onto your other side, to your left side. So again, you're rolling on your left side, and on my left shoulder is kind of forward a little bit, but my knees are up. That's kind of the key. The knees are to be, trying to be at a 90-degree angle so that you can get your hand on them and really focus. If you arch too much in your back, then the attention goes more to the mid back, which is fine, but we're really trying to work on your lower back and trying to get into the top of your hips when we do this. And you'll feel it. It's almost as if you're trying to get an adjustment from your chiropractor if you do that. We're inhaling and just letting the right hand back now as we exhale. And just letting it fall open. So again, you're going to have to let me know how you feel after this, because it's different for every person, and it's just kind of fun. The idea of basically just stretching in a way on a mat for 45 minutes and doing the same pose while we breathe. But there's this feeling that you get when you're done that's just kind of cool, at least for me. So when I'm exhaling, I'm just trying to let the air come out and let my arm just kind of hang there for as long as I'm able to until I need air. And then I inhale into my belly and then let it back out. Let's roll up. Perfect timing. We're going to come into a child's pose for just a moment. Bring your knees wide on the mat and your big toes together. Sink your butt back towards your heels and reach your hands out as much as you can. And that's going to be the goal for this minute or this very short child's pose, is just to reach with your hands and then sink your collarbones down to the mat. So you're opening up your shoulders, but you're also probably going to feel this in the back of your thighs, almost into your glutes. So the inhale is to bring your hips up a little bit, your torso up a little bit, and the exhale is to reach your hands and sink down, almost trying to create a flat back. So we're not in any way today doing child's pose as a rest pose. Just calling for my little dog to come out and say goodbye to us. Hey, Joy, come here. Hey, little dog. Joy's coming out to say hi. Hi there, pup. Yeah. I know, look at your little tail back. All right. All right, let's come up into a seated position. Let's have Joy take a bite. Come here, Joy. Come up into our seated position. Joy's going to sit down. There you go. Look at this cute little dog. All right, let's bring our hands to our side. Oh, she's clearly not wanting to sit. Hands to your side. We're going to inhale. Bring your arms up overhead. Hands together, and exhale. Bring your hands to heart center. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your presence. Namaste. All right, Pete.